How's it going, YouTube? Coming in today with another video, and today, guys, the brand new is going to be the new rulings video. This is going to be a lot of fun because I feel like there's a ton of questions asked every single day, and I really love making videos like this to help you get ahead of the game and really get those questions answered for you. If there are other questions that you have, let me know down below in the comment section so I can go ahead and answer those for you. Huge shout outs to the owners of the Judges Lounge, really having a long conversation with them about what are the most commonly asked questions throughout the week so that I can answer those for you in the video and then make sure that you are, again, just ahead of the game. If you haven't already checked out my sponsors over in RW, Cloud, Gem, Arla, Imperium, Dragonshield, and Grimoire, definitely go ahead and do so all down below in the description. Also, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already so we can hit our goal at 30,000. It's going to be so much fun. I can't wait till we hit that number, and then we're off to 50 and 100. We're going to get that plaque at some point, and I'm very excited to have it. And I already know that we're going to get there one day, and I appreciate you all for sticking around. But without further ado, let's hop right into our first topic. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is going to be mandatory chain link ones. Now, there are optional triggers and there's mandatory triggers. Now, mandatory is really important to talk about because this will supersede other things in a chain link. So let's say that there is a mandatory chain link and two optional chain links that are going to be all put together, and it is your own turn. Your mandatory chain link will be first. Even if it's your opponent's turn and there's only one mandatory chain link, your mandatory chain link will still be chain link 1. And this is extremely important because let's say that your opponent has like an Ash Blossom, right? And it's going to be mandatory chain link 1 seal. They can either Ash Blossom your card, or they can use their card effects that will be going off at the same time, right? So it makes things really awkward sometimes, and you can put your opponent at some really awkward positions. But GG, why is mandatory chain link 1 so important? Well, we do have a hand trap that interacts with this really well. So Ghost Mourner is really insane for very specific formats. Back when Token Collector and Scythe were really popular, Mourner was like the craziest card because both Collector and Scythe are mandatory. So when they hit the board, it doesn't matter if it is your turn, you can still chainlink to Mourner these cards because they have to happen right away, whereas Mourner is optional. So again, mandatory will supersede optional. Now, the whole thing with Mourner was back when Guardian Chimera was primarily used, and this is because it's usually summoned on your turn, so your opponent will summon a Chimera on your turn, and then you will have the option to go Chainlink 1 Mourner before your opponent can go Chainlink 2 Chimera. Now, if they summon it on their turn, and it's an optional Chimera, you can go Chainlink 2 Mourner. But this was always making Mourner way worse because since you have the optional on your turn, you can use yours, but it doesn't accomplish anything, right? So that really does suck, and that's where Mourner was a lot worse. Now let's talk about the damage step and negating effect versus activation. So this is extremely important because during the damage step, you can only activate cards that would negate an activation or change a stat. So this is extremely important when it comes to hand traps as well. Ghost Bell versus Meister. Meister negates effect. Bell negates activation. So if you do swing over like a Shizuku and your opponent goes to activate Ray in Graveyard, you cannot Meister because it's just trying to negate the effect. The same reason why you can't use cards like Ash Blossom in the damage step. But you can use Bell because Bell does negate activation, and that's why a lot of times you'll see people use Bell for very specific formats like this one alone, where Bell was really crazy back in Striker format. But what's the craziest damage step interaction that you could do? Honestly, it's probably from Forbidden Droplet. This is a very unique ruling that you have to know. So, when you activate Droplet, typically you are going attack deck, and your opponent goes, that's cool, and then you go damage step, and your opponent's like, that's okay, and then you flip Droplet and damage step, right? So, this is really important because let's say that it's a one-on-one battle and you don't want to take damage from it. You can go battle phase with your opponent uses their monster to attack into your monster. You call damage step. You then flip Droplet. You send your only monster on the board, or the one that's being attacked, to the graveyard, and then your opponent's monster's attack will be cut in half. But what's unique about this is that you will then finish the damage step and there will be no damage because the attack target is now gone and you cannot replay the attack because you are in the damage step. So if you're trying to avoid damage, or you're trying to avoid your opponent making a Zeus, this is another one where let's say they use their Xyz monster to attack into something, and then you go Droplet, send your monster in damage step. There is no battle that had happened, your opponent cannot make a Zeus. So this is a very important ruling with Droplet that is used quite often, but if you don't know about it, it's one that it's hard to find out about. So I do hope that you end up using this ruling because it does come up and it does come in handy. There are rulings in this game that are specifically BKSS, because Konami said so. And it makes $0.00 as to why it works, but Konami says it does, so it does. This is one of them. So, Kaiju Slumber. Destroy as many monsters on the field as possible in the special summon and attack position 2 Kaijus with different names, but they cannot change their battle positions. But if you read a Kaiju, it says that you can only control 1 Kaiju monster. So you're using Slumber, you're blowing up your Kaiju to summon another Kaiju. And remember how most floodgates work, where you cannot attempt to summon another one? That's the whole thing. Under there can be only one. And let's say you have a Fiend. You cannot attempt to control another Fiend, even if you're just tribute summoning a Fiend over a Fiend. You cannot attempt to do so. So, legally, you should not be able to attempt to Kaiju Slumber if you control a Kaiju. But you can, because Konami said so. So one thing that you should be familiar with is priority. And I'm not talking about like 2012, like Dino Rabbit priority. This is something that we have, it's turn player priority, and you get the first action in any of your phases. So let's say that you call draw phase, and you just drew a card for turn. Your opponent goes, I'm going to activate Dweller. No. Like, you have the first action. So you can go, hold up, turn player priority, activate Super Poly away your Caesar and your Dweller. Right? So that's something that you are allowed to do. You do have turn player priority. And so that's another thing, too, with, like, standby phase, bring back DPE. Let's say you're in a mirror match and you both have a DPE in the graveyard. You can summon your DPE, use your DPE's effect to like blow something up and then blow up yours and activate the effect in grave before your opponent can even use theirs. And it's all about turn player priority. You can use your effects, and especially if your opponents aren't like mandatory effects in that phase, you can determine at which rate which effects resolve. So if you both have a DPE, you can go, I'm going to resolve my DPE to summon, use the effect of DPE, blow things up, put it in grave, activate the effect. Now you can use your DPE. And I know that's really confusing, but turn player priority is like so important in this game, and it can really get you very far. So for the last bit of info here, you cannot activate effects that do nothing. So what do I mean by that? So we already know that if you're in main phase 2, or if it's turn 1, you can use the effect of SP Little Knight to go ahead and banish a card in the field, and then you also cannot declare a direct attack. So hypothetically, you shouldn't be able to do this because it doesn't do anything, right? Like, that's not something that would ever happen in turn 0, but it's because the first part of the effect is an actual effect that you can apply, and then the you cannot attack directly is like an additional effect to that because of the also. So you're banishing something, but also you can't attack directly. So technically not doing nothing. The effect is still banishing a card. Whereas if it's turn 0, you actually cannot use the effect of Megalo because all it's doing is tributing another water to make it be able to attack twice in the same turn, but there is no battle phase turn 0. So your Megalo actually just can't activate because of the fact that it's an effect that would do nothing. The SP is actually proactively doing something by banishing a card with the also to add on to the effect that you can't attack directly, whereas the only effect that's happening for Megalo is the fact that you can attack twice, which you're not allowed to attack at all. So it doesn't do anything, therefore you can't activate it. I hope that you learned something today, and if you did, definitely go ahead and subscribe, like the video, and join my Twitch, Twitter, Discord, and Instagram. I hope that you all have a wonderful night. I'll catch you on the next video. Thank you.